lot of people have been asking for it, so here it is, my Yubel deck profile. This is my new deck profile for Yubel post Phantom Nightmare, including all of the fancy new cards that are about to come out. How exciting is that? It's so epic. So let's get straight into this. I made this deck on stream with a lot of you viewers, so thank you all so much for the help that you gave me with that. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, here it is for anyone who missed that stream. Here is the deck profile. So first we have a very small sort of Sacred Beast engine. We have one copy of Dark Beckoning Beast, neat, and to go with that we have 2 copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates as well. So that's our small Sacred Beast engine. I'll get into why we have that later on if you don't already know. Next we have the new Yubel cards. Well, first of all we have 2 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, which gives you a 2400 attack monster, which is definitely not bad at all. And also, during your main phase, you can add 1 Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. So you summon 1 Fenrir, and then you get another Fenrir, which just very easily, searches your deck, gets 1 card out, and gets you another monster in hand, which is great. And then finally, when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and banish it face down. So that is obviously a very powerful effect to get rid of your opponent's best monsters. You can stop a lot of players just with this card alone. So it was definitely a good option for the deck to give it a bit more of a power boost. Next up, we have the new Yubel cards. Here they are. First of all, 3 copies of Geist Grinder Golem. This card is fantastic. Not only does it special summon itself to your opponent's field, giving you a 3000 attack monster to crash into and deal 3000 damage to your opponent, but then it also special summons a Yubel monster from your hand, giving you another very easy way to summon Yubel straight to your field. Also, when this card battles a Yubel monster, you gain 3000 life points, which is, fantastic. That's a great effect. I don't know why you wouldn't have this. Very easily summons Yubel, gives you something heavy to hit, and gives you 3000 life points in exchange. That's really great. Next up we have 3 copies of Samsara Demon Lotus, Samsara Regenerating Lotus, Sacrifice Demon Lotus, whichever you want to call it. I prefer the Japanese version, it's a lot cooler. But Samsara Regenerating Lotus, where you contribute this card to special summon a Yubel monster from your deck. That alone is reason enough to run 3 of it, right? This is one of the best ways to summon Yubel, summons her straight from the deck. It's really good. But also, during your opponent's turn, when a monster effect is activated, while you control a Yubel monster, quick effect, you contribute this card. That activated effect becomes destroy 1 Yubel monster on the field. So this basically can negate any of your any of your opponent's monster effects, destroying a Yubel on the field, and of course, when Yubel is destroyed, she evolves into the next form. Finally, during your end phase, if you control Yubel, that is only the original form of Yubel, not any of her evolutions, and this card is in your graveyard, you can either add this card to your hand or special summon it. If you add it to your hand, then of course you can summon it next turn, which gives you its negation effect or allows you to special summon another Yubel from your deck. Or if you special summon it, you can use it as tribute fodder for Yubel's maintenance cost, or keep it on the field to use its negation effect, whichever is up to you. Next up we have 3 copies of Spirit of Yubel. This card is the bread and butter of the deck. This card is so good for the deck. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, of course you take no damage, blah blah, it's a Yubel card. When it's destroyed, you can special summon 1 of your Yubel, the original Yubel, that is banished or in your hand, deck, or graveyard. So she gets the original form of Yubel from anywhere. It goes now from Spirit to Yubel to Terra Incarnate to Ultimate Nightmare. We have 4 forms of Yubel, and this is just fantastic. Unfortunately, Spirit of Yubel doesn't do any damage to your opponent. However, if your opponent monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is great. Also, if this card is special summoned by any effect, including Samsara Regenerating Lotus, which is the main thing we're going to do, you can take 1 spell or trap from your deck that mentions Yubel and either add it to your hand or set it to your field. That effect is really good. That gives you basically everything that you need. It gets you Yubel on the field, it gets you your Nightmare Pain, or it gets you your Eternal Favorite, it's just really, really strong and is the main searcher of the deck. You can summon it, of course, with Geist Grinder Golem or Samsara Regenerating Lotus, or even Mature Chronicle. Yeah, can all bring out this card. It's a really great card, definitely needed at 3. Next up, finally, for our monsters, we have 3 copies of Yubel, 3 copies of Yubel das Abschirita. That's probably mispronounced, but I'm pronouncing it how the Japanese do it, alright? Alright. And finally, 1 Yubel das Extrema Trauriga Draken. Again, Japanese, don't blame me for my mispronunciation. I prefer the Japanese names, okay? They're a lot more deep and meaningful than Terra Incarnate and the Ultimate Nightmare. Yeah, they kind of stink. So we have 2 copies of the alternate forms. You don't need 3. You're never gonna get 3 of them out unless you turbo it, which I will do a deck for that later on. But this deck is mainly focused on having Yubel on your field and then keeping her on your field. We no longer need to go into the Ultimate Nightmare. We no longer need to turbo into her final form, because now with the new Nightmare Pain, which I love, it's my favorite card ever. Now with the new Nightmare Pain, we no longer need to go into Ultimate Nightmare to deal damage ourselves. With Nightmare Pain, we can attack, and our opponent takes all the damage, which is just mwah! Icing on the cake that is Yubel, and I don't mind icing on Yubel. What? Before we go into our spells and traps, I would just like to give a very, very quick announcement that I have some new Yu-Gi-Oh! Merch on the shop. We have 2 Yubel poster thingies. I mean, you can get them on posters, you can get them on cups, shirts, pillows, whatever you want, but they are made for posters, of course. We have 1 image that I made myself of a Yandere Yubel. It's really cute. I think it's great. I like it a lot. For all our Yandere fans of the channel and Yubel fans, we have a lot of both now, which is just fantastic. And we have 1 other design, which is myself with Yubel, because I love Yubel. I drew those myself, as well as all the other new Yu-Gi-Oh! Designs. We have some Manjome merch for our Reign of Thunder series. I have 2 of those in the background. We have a drawing of myself with Gren Maju da Aiza, and of course we have my YouTube banner as well, which features both Gren Maju and Yubel and myself. So, you know, if you like all 3 of us, then that's an option too. Also, we have, like, my logo and stuff as merch, including one in which you can like put your name, your own name, or anything you want across there. All the merch is completely customizable. You just go to the customize option in the shop at senkara.myspreadshop.com, and you can put any image that you want, any of my designs or any of your images on any of my products, which is shirts, mugs, cups, bottles, friggin' dog bib thingies. I don't know, you got designs for kids, designs for babies, beanies, hats, posters, stickers, magnets. We have buttons as well, you know, badges, and even like mouse pads too. We have all sorts of things on the shop. If you want to go check that out, that would mean a lot to me. That's senkara.myspreadshop.com. 2 Yubel designs are out so far, with many more on the way. Thank you very much for this announcement. Let's get right back to the video. So, for our spells, we have, first of all, Action Magic Full Turn. This card was suggested to me by, let me just get his name real quick, because he's an absolute legend for suggesting this. This card was suggested to me by SparksTube during the stream, Action Magic Full Turn. It's really cheesy and is a lot of fun. So this card doubles battle damage that a player takes from battles involving 2 monsters. So if you have this on the field with Nightmare Pain and you attack into a Geist Grinder Golem, just 1 attack deals 6,000 damage. And that's just great for everyone involved, isn't it? That's fantastic. Next up, we have 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. You could run 3 if you want. I prefer to keep it at 2 because, you know, it can be a little risky. As always, Allure of Darkness can be a little risky, but it does work with the new Yubel cards. Of course, all of them are dark monsters, but also they can be brought back when banished, which is fantastic. Next up, we have 1 copy of Mature Chronicle. I don't even know if I want 1 of it. I would keep it at 1 because it is another option to search, and it does actually have some good uses, but it is far too slow for my taste. I think in future I will do a Mature Chronicle Turbo type of deck, really see if we can speed this up, but for now, just 1 copy of this. This card has 5 effects which are all really helpful and are quite great, as particularly the first effect. You can remove 1 counter to special summon 1 Yubel from your graveyard, so that's a good effect. Only gets out the original Yubel, of course, but yeah, its other effects are great, but you can only use 1 per turn, and they take counters. It's way too slow to have more copies of this card, but it's good enough to include 1 of. Next up, we have the new best Yubel card, Nightmare Pain. This card is, mwah, it is insane. This is like it. This is the only card that I was expecting, you know, Nightmare Pain. If they didn't include this, I would have screamed, you know, like, it's Nightmare Pain. Everyone who makes any Yubel custom support has always made Nightmare Pain. Look at the artwork, it's amazing. Nightmare Pain, I can go on about this all day. Nightmare Pain, during your main phase, you can destroy one dark monster in your hand or face-up field, and if you do, add one Yubel or card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. Of course, if you destroy if you destroy your original Yubel or your Spirit of Yubel, you immediately go into the next form of Yubel, either Yubel or the Terra Incarnate. Either way, that's just really great. So that immediately gets you a Yubel on your field, which is fantastic, and then adds a Yubel card or one that mentions it to your hand, such as Samsara Regenerating Lotus, which will allow you to go into a second Yubel. You can also use it to get your Grace Grinder Golem, which can allow you to go into a second Yubel and give you something to hit that's really big. So that's cool. The other reason it is fantastic, wow, best card on the deck, is that, while you control a Yubel monster, all your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack a Yubel monster, so that protects your Samsara Regenerating Lotus if that's on the field, which is fantastic, and also of course forces your opponent to attack Yubel and take all the damage for that, which is great. And then finally, your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving your Yubel monsters instead. Basically, that effect comes in before Yubel's Nobody Takes Damage effect, apparently, so I've heard, and it'd be really dumb if that didn't work out, but this allows you to attack with Yubel, and then your opponent takes damage equal to their monster's attack, even when you attack with Yubel. That is so friggin' good, and is exactly what we needed, and its extra effects are just fantastic anyway, so you would still include 3 copies of it. This card is amazing, and you absolutely need it at 3, and really just opens up all our OTKs. Like, this deck can OTK insanely well. It's so friggin' good. I love it so much. Next up, we have 1 copy of 1 for 1. This will get us our Samsara Regenerating Lotus, which of course gets us our Yubel, or rather Spirit of Yubel, so that's just fantastic. 2 copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates. This card is great. This is like, originally, before these cards came out, was the best way to summon Yubel. Now we have a lot of better options. With its effect, you can discard a card, special summon a fiend monster with 0 attack or defense, with 0 attack and defense from your graveyard. So, of course, that gets any of your Yubel monsters out, right? That gets Yubel, Spirit of Yubel, Samsara Regenerating Lotus even, or of course Dark Beckoning Beast is an option too. It also searches Dark Beckoning Beast from your deck when it's activated, and while you have a level 10 monster on the field, such as Yubel, you can add a continuous spell from your graveyard to your hand, which could be Mature Chronicle, could be Nightmare Pain, or could be Opening of the Spirit Gates. Either way, that's just a neat effect. It works well with Yubel and is just a fairly decent card and a good way to bring it back from the graveyard. Next up, we have 2 copies of Peri Race Map. This card can, at the start of your main phase, add a monster with 0 attack from your deck to your hand. So, Peri Race Map, that is definitely a good option. This gets us our Samsara Regenerating Lotus, gets us our Spirit of Yubel or our original Yubel to the hand, which you can then combo with Geist Grinder Golem or Nightmare Pain. Either way, this card gives us access to any monster that we want, or even Dark Beckoning Beast, though probably shouldn't go for that, go for one of the other options. But this is a great card, definitely need at least like 2 copies of it. You need at least 1. I would even say 2 or 3 would be great for this deck. Next up, we have 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires, banish 10, draw 2, great card. We don't have any one-offs in this deck that are important, so you can go ahead and banish anything. And this actually even works with Mature Chronicle, which is really, really great. Mature Chronicle, with its second effect, you can remove 2 counters to add one of your banished cards to your hand. Since this is add one of your banished cards, not specific at all, this includes face down banished cards, which means it works with Desires. You can banish 10 cards, use Mature Chronicle to add like any of those to your hand once per turn, basically, assuming that you don't banish your Mature Chronicle, which would be unfortunate, but hey, what are you gonna do? It's a great card. Again, don't have any important one-offs, you know, you're very unlikely to lose everything and it's not going to ruin your strategy. Gives you 2 cards, easy setup for OTK, definitely need it. Next up, we have 1 copy of Pot of Extravagance. I used to have 3, swap them out for Allure of Darkness, but I do still include one of these. Banish 6 from your extra deck to draw 2 cards. Definitely a fantastic card, definitely need it in the deck. You might want to swap it out for Allure of Darkness, simply because it restricts you from drawing cards for the rest of the turn, or, you know, at all, because you have to activate it during your main phase 1. Because you have to activate it at the start of your main phase 1. But I do like to have it for its alternate activation cost. I think is a little bit more generous than Allure of Darkness and a little bit safer than Allure of Darkness. But if you want to swap it out for a third Allure, be my guest. Honestly, if you want to swap out your Sacred Beast package for 2 more Extravagances and 1 Allure, that would also be a really good option as well. Finally, for the spells, of course, we have 3 copies of Super Polymerization. I mean, this card is insane. This card is really, really strong in the meta if you can use it, and now Yubel has the best Super Fusion target. Of course, we also have 3 copies of the new Eternal Favorite, which not only can special summon one of your Yubel monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, again, another way to bring it back while banished, another way to just keep recycling Yubel, keep her on the field as long as possible, very, very easy, but also it acts, if you control a Yubel, just Yubel, the original, it acts as a super polymerization. You can discard a card, send this to the graveyard, and fusion summon using a Yubel monster. So, yeah, definitely need 3 of those, definitely need 3 of these, because we have the best target in the game, which we'll get into next. First of all, for our extra deck, we have 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. You may also want to include a Predaplant Dragostapelia. That's what it's called, right? Yeah, I think so. 2 Dark Monsters on the field, obviously great super fusion target if your opponent runs Dark Monsters. We run pretty much all Dark Monsters except for Fenrir, so that's definitely a great option for us. And then next we have 3 copies of the new Yubel, the Eternal Watcher, or as she is in the Japanese version, Yubel das Ewig Lebe Watcher. That was horrendously pronounced, I'm so sorry, I'm not even going to try and do it again. This card is the best, and I mean the best, Super Polymerization summon in the entire game, and it can only be used with Yubel, which is fantastic. 1 Yubel monster, plus 1 or more effect monsters on the field. How insane is that? This card with Super Polymerization or Eternal Favorite can just eat your opponent's entire board. You just nuke all of their monsters gone, and then you get this and deal 500 points of damage for each fusion material, which is just, alright, sure, why not? And then, of course, you take no battle damage, can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. Another just, delicious, fantastic. And at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, including when it attacks, when she attacks, or when your opponent attacks her, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that opponent's monster's attack, and then banish that monster. This card is ridiculous, and with Nightmare Pain on the field, that doubles the damage. So you have this, you have Geistgrind Golem, you have Nightmare Pain, that alone is 6,000 damage, and then when she's summoned, if you use 4 monsters, that's 2,000. So right there, that's your OTK, nice and easy. Yubel the Eternal Watcher is ridiculous. It's such a powerful card, just by its summoning condition alone makes it completely stupid. And then the rest of it is just so good. I love it so much. I am so happy with this. It's so friggin' good. And you definitely want to run 3 of them because, like, you can use 3 of them. You definitely can. You have 3 Super Polys, 3 Eternal Favorites, 3 Eternal Watchers. You just keep eating your opponent's board. Like, your opponent doesn't need monsters, okay? They don't need monsters. Get rid of them all. Just eat them. Destroy them. Don't destroy them. Fuse them. It's not even destruction. And you can't negate Super Fusion. It's so dumb. It's so ridiculous. I love it. Next up for our Xyz monsters, we have Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max! Gustav Max, of course, rank 10, inflicts 2,000 damage to your opponent, 3,000 attack. Definitely a great option. Yubel and Spirit of Yubel are both level 10 monsters, so very easy to summon Gustav Max. And then, of course, with Gustav Max, you can go into Juggernaut Liebe, the OTK machine himself. These cards are just great for finishing off your opponent, giving us even more access to OTKs. If you have 2 Yubels, you might only be able to deal 6,000 damage with your Geistgrinder Golem, but then you can use those 2 Yubels to go into Gustav Max and deal the extra 2,000. Finally, for our Link Monsters, very basic Link Monster deck, we have Access Code Talker again, OTK. This is all about OTK and control. That is the new theme of Yubel, which is ridiculous. Normally, control decks don't OTK, but Yubel does, because she's just... oh, I love her so much. 1 copy of Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess, 1 IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, 1 copy of Macraka from the Underworld, which just has some great synergy with Yubel, special summoning fiends from the graveyard, you know, just another way to get her out. 1 Sky Striker Ace Azalea to get rid of one of our opponent's cards, it's just a good option. And we don't have a lot of spells in our graveyard since most of our spells are continuous, so that works too. 1 copy of Double Logic Zero Boros. This is more for shits and giggles, just for fun. I was just testing it out, but we have 2 Desires, 1 Extravagance. You can definitely get this card an extra 2000 attack at least. Very nice. Very strong. Good for the OTK. And finally, 1 copy of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Gotta have her. She's a strong card, very powerful, and can steal one of our opponent's monsters, which is always good. So that is all for today. That is my new Yubel post-Phantom Nightmare deck. She's gorgeous. I love her so much. I love her so much. I'm so happy with the support. If you guys are as happy as I am, then do leave a like and subscribe for more Yubel videos in the future. I'll be going over all sorts of stuff to do with Yubel, including different ways to run this new support in more decks. I've got a lot of things in mind, different things to combine it with. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, so do be sure to stick around to check that out. Let me know what you think down in the comments of this deck. Let me know any changes or improvements that you would make if you've used this deck. Let me know how it goes, and thank you all so very much for watching. My name has been Senkara, and until next time, see ya.